getting Carly her exact middle piece first. I'm going to go ahead and get started with session 12. Looking at bigger picture, looking at the pyramid, we're starting to get into the top two levels of the pyramid. Again, derived from building blocks, sleep, and other evidence-based practices. So this first visual here is from the building blocks framework within the targeted social emotional supports, which is embedded into the Pyramid Plus model that we were just looking at. So first I want to kind of start with a little bit of a definition of what is embedded instruction. Those two words together can just feel like a lot. So by definition, embedded instruction is, and actually would anybody else like to read it? You listen to me talk a lot. Thank you, Erica.
Emphasizes identifying times and activities with instructional procedures for teaching the child priority. Learning targets are implemented in ongoing naturally occurring activities in the classroom, at home, or in other settings. Increases engagement, participation, and independence. Feasible for caregivers to use in ongoing activities, routines, and transitions.
Say that 5 times fast, right? That is definitely a mouthful. But I mean, if you break it down line by line, what we're really looking at is finding an opportunity or a time during a child's routine or daily activities when instructional procedures such as learning new skills, teaching a child new skills, the skills that are identified as a target, when those things are implemented. And those are implemented during naturally occurring activities. And those can be in the classroom, those can be at home, those can be at a babysitter's house, they can be across the board. Thank you, Erica, for reading that. So there's a lot of research behind embedded instruction that tells us why we do embed the instruction. It's very effective for teaching children new skills. It's also an effective strategy for increasing engagement, participation, and independence, which, with a developing child, those 3 things can be really, really important. It can also promote maintenance of newly learned skills. So not only teaching the new skills, but adopting those new skills and being able to use them later. So a few more research findings, and you can see that these are the articles that they're from. Like we said, it's effective for teaching a variety of valued skills to young children. There can be a variety of instructional strategies that have been embedded effectively. And it seems to enhance generalization. So the next slide that we're going to look at, and then actually the next 2 slides, are all about a research study done by Susan Sandel, and she was the author, is the author of Building Blocks. You okay? She is the author of Building Blocks that we've talked about a lot, where a lot of the evidence-based practices come from. So in this study, she used a number of children. You can see on the right-hand column how many children. And they participated in embedded learning opportunity instruction, Now, the results of the study showed us that 80% of children made progress. So 80% of those 63 children, they made progress, which, 80%, do you agree with me? That's a pretty big number, especially when it comes to children making progress. Children develop so differently. So for 87% of them to make progress, that's a really, really strong statistic for, a reason for why we do this. And furthermore, a little less than 43% of those children reached their objective, reached their goal, which again is a huge number. That's close to half, which is really pretty awesome. So that being said, I know we just talked about the research of why we do this, but why do we use embedded instruction? The research shows us that it maximizes children's motivation. I really like this piece because it shows us that if we find things that children are interested in, they are going to be more motivated, which I think is definitely something that applies to all ages of human beings, not just young children. Embedded instruction promotes learning, not only acquisition of a new skill, taking in that new skill and really learning it, but also the fluency of how well and how often the child uses the new skill. It also promotes mastery, which as children grow up is very important. So looking at the process of embedded instruction, there are a couple of things we need to look at. What we teach, when we teach it, how we teach it, and how we monitor progress. How do we evaluate and monitor? So we just kind of talked about the why. Now we're going to talk about the process of it. So there are 3 steps of embedded instruction. There's the planning beforehand, the implementing, and then the evaluation. So what we teach. This comes from our planning step. Hi, come on in. This comes from our planning step. A team develops functional goals and outcomes, and therefore a plan gets developed because you have goals. You have something that you're reaching towards. You don't know what the plan should be until you know what you're working towards. So this next slide is just a few examples of different goals. One is an independence goal, and one is a social interaction goal. And I think these examples are really great to read just really quick. I'd like to read them both, because you can think about these and maybe think about a child in your classroom right now that you might be able to create a goal around this. Does anyone want to read the independence goal? Thank you, Maria. Shelly, I'll have you read the next one. How's that?
Luke, 3 years, will participate in breakfast, lunch, and dinner by feeding himself independently. He will know he can do this when he uses his hands to pick up a spoon to put at least 10 bites of soft foods in his mouth each meal.
Awesome. Thank you very much for reading that. So I know you talked about goals with Catherine a lot, but we're definitely going to talk about them a little bit more in the future as well. I think this is a really great goal because it's not too overcomplicated, like the goals that you guys created before. Shelly, did you want to read the social interaction goal?
Sure. Keena, 9 months, will participate in meals, playtime, and routines, diapering, bath time, waking up, by looking at caregivers and balance. He will know he can do this when he looks at the caregiver and balance 3 times during 5 activities per day.
Awesome. I think it's really great when there are some numerical goals, 3 times a day during 5 activities per day for 1 week. So I think it's really great to be able to measure them when you have some numbers to go off of. So now looking at when we teach. Now when we talk about the team, I should have said this before, but when we talk about the team, who are we talking about? Who might those people be on the team?
The mom, the dad, I'm not sure.
Yep, exactly. The mom, dad, caregivers, teachers. Could it be a mental health consultant? Exactly. So the team can be a variety of different people. Thank you, Adriana. But so the team gets together, and then as a whole, they decide when to embed that instruction, when they see the best opportunity to promote that progress. So next we're going to talk about, and we're actually going to do an activity on this a little bit later, but we are going to talk about an activity matrix. Has anyone ever heard of one before? No? Perfect. And then we can all learn it together. So an activity matrix helps ensure that learning occurs. It can include several different things, such as daily routines. It can include a number of children and a number of activities. It can be done on a classroom level as well as on an individual child level. It can include the number of adults and also some more information about those activities, such as whether or not it requires adult monitoring. So here's an example of an activity matrix for multiple children. Right here we're looking at John and Sarah, and you can see that their schedule is on the left-hand side, so you can see how they're doing at each point during the schedule. And then you have a chance to kind of compare the two and look at it on a much bigger picture. So then the next slide is an activity matrix for just an individual child. And if you look closely and compare the two, this is actually an individual activity matrix for John that we saw on the last slide. I've said it a bunch of times today, but I really like visuals like this because it really seems to simplify. A lot of times when we're talking about research and evidence-based practices, it's easy to pull things out of the research, and a lot of times it can just be lots of big paragraphs with lots of numbers. This really simplifies that research. It makes it really pretty easy to understand. So there are many benefits of embedding instructions throughout daily routines. The family has more of an opportunity throughout the day to encourage their child to practice and learn new skills. I think the big takeaway here is to think about that with these embedded instructions, children are going to get so much more benefit out of it if it is embedded in the classroom as well as at home. Because like we talked about in the activity this morning, the expectations can be different, and if you can bring some consistency to these embedded instructions during your daily routines, it's going to sink in much better with your children. So now we're going a video. This video is actually pretty cute. It's only about 1.5 minutes long. And this is a video of a mom and her infant at home. And their routine, I believe it's diaper changing, but she embeds some learning opportunities within that routine. Just gonna get that video there. So while you're watching this video, just go ahead and be thinking about the embedded learning opportunities that we've talked about and see if maybe you can identify some that the mom might be embedding. Yeah, that's fine.